Let's just confirm everyone has video. Sweet. All right. Nice. So, yeah, I just wanted to do this live stream to show a little bit of what we're working on around, the space is primitive, and kind of talk to how it could be leveraged to build applications and whatnot. So, I probably just this is going to be very unscripted, and I'll probably like even go over to some code to talk about a few things. Um, just want to kind of show you the scope of what we're trying to do with spaces because um, a lot of times people ask questions of like, okay, so you can, and maybe I could just, how about this? Before I walk into the questions people ask, why don't I just show you a little bit about spaces? That's actually a better way to do this. All right, so this is my personal space. We refer to it as the R space. ORU, or no, or you are. Jeez. So yeah, so the idea of space is that they're kind of mapped to groups in a way, but at the same time, um, we have in our roadmap the capacity to do sort of like subgroupings underneath it, right? So you can imagine that Holium, right now there's four members because we have this internal build of Realm that we're all using. Um, but in the future, say we've got, 15, 20 people, and some of those people are, operations. Some of them are like dev, some are design, whatnot. At some point, we'll have this capacity to do subspaces. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because spaces and groups don't directly map to each other necessarily. Um, Lucas is asking, is this running in your browser? No, it's not. It's actually, you can think of Realm as a new type of web browser. It's a web environment. Um, so, I mean, you asked this question. I could just show you this, but I'm going to try to stick with spaces. But I'll show you maybe this app here, the one that I have pinned, the first one. So if I open this, it's actually a web browser. So like, there is a web browser, but you have to open it as an app like this, right? So um, Realm is outside of the scope of a web browser. It's like, an outer frame. And then you have sort of like, web apps that you can have pinned here. You can have, um, just the general internet and browse around. And then also you can open, Urbit apps. Um, So, these are my apps that I have. I can just, radio is a good one. And we'll see who's up, who's on the scope of a web browser.
Oh,
It's
geez.
like, okay, I'm hearing myself twice. So sorry. Um, but yeah, so the idea behind, yeah, Realm is that we're trying to break free the browser, like the limitations that you have from the UX of the browser that's been around for decades. We're reframing the whole thing. And so, like to get back to spaces, there's this idea of you have different desktop spaces that have different contexts based on the groups and communities and whatnot that you're a part of. So, in the case of the Holium one, if I were to click on this, I'm transported into this new desktop, right? Um, and in it, I have different apps that I have pinned. These apps could be specific to Holly, and maybe we have some internal apps that we only really use in for ourselves, which means that yeah, you really wouldn't be able to discover these apps unless you were part of the Holly space. And you could see like DAOs could do something similar where the example I use is imagine an NFT collective DAO, and what they do is they build this app in Realm that generates NFTs for their NFT series, but they want it only internal to their DAO. So you can imagine having apps that are specific to spaces, as well as apps that you would build and launch and eventually distribute out for other people to use. Um, so the idea with spaces though is that it's a physical, it's like a digital local environment, if that makes sense. So you can think of groups as like this social network or graph of people. Um, and then a space is like a desktop that those people come together and work on. So there could be, this top level space that has the entire membership list. And then underneath that, you would do subspaces, to break out the teams. So that's try to break out these concepts. Just think of groups as, yeah, just an arbitrary member list. And then the spaces as like a place where you're doing stuff, like a location you're doing stuff with those people. Um, so like just to get into spaces a bit more, like I have some examples in here just to show like, yeah, you can do all this customization. You can have like themes and different backgrounds and all this stuff. Um, and these are just some examples that I've put together. But if you wanted to create a new space, let me actually go back to this one. Let me create a new space. So if I click create space, there's a few ways we can do it. We can seed it from a group we already have. So I could use, the Holium Frontier group, which I host, or I could use the Holium internal group, which I host. So making a space is like if you host a group, you can create a space from that group. And what we do is we just port over, the member list and all of that. But there's also this ability to do it like raw, so sort of like a bare space. So if we hit this new space here and hit create, um, yeah, I can come in here and add some details similar to sort of what you would do with groups. And mainly this is because this first release of Realm is going to be limited to sort of the community archetype. And the community archetype just kind of maps to the group. Uh, so in this case, we would say this is yeah, like live stream hangout space. Um, and you can set the access. So maybe I want to set the access to like, yeah, anyone can join. You just get a link. You put it into the spaces, uh, UI, and then just join. The invite means you need to be invited. And then this other one down here that we aren't going to have in the version one is this idea of an antechamber. There's this concept where you can have like a space that is sort of like the initiate area where initiates can go in and you know earn their earn the credibility to be brought into like the actual group or the actual space. So yeah, let me just create this one. I'll make it private. We'll hit next. And yeah, so here it's like this is where you would enter who you want to invite. So maybe I'll invite Fastnut. He's with us at Halium. And I could set, what is the role? Maybe he's just an initiate, or maybe I can make him an admin. And so let me just create the space and we can go from there. So I'll create the space and boom, you know, this is like the default wallpaper. So we just created an entirely new space. We have it here on the spaces, menu. And if I wanted to invite other people, I would come here and sort of open this group hub. So one thing you'll notice with spaces is if you open the sort of home screen when you're in your personal context, it's the app grid, right? So this is like your personal desktop, and it has your apps. But when you move to another one, so say let's maybe jump back to Holium in this case, we've actually already preset some apps in the app suite. Um, and so the idea with the app suite is that, um, yeah, so if you're DAO or if you're like a, crypto org, or if you're us at Holium, there's some apps that we use, and we use Ngram for notes and stuff. We use Campfire for some video calling. Um, we're using Escape here or there. And so the idea is that like we can actually set what apps um, are defined in this app suite. So if I go back to the other one, so let me go back to the one we created, um, live stream hangout space. Yeah, so in this case, we have Yeah, it's just bare, and the recommended apps that you see here actually come from the people you've invited, and the people that are in the space. So in this case, Theorelica's already accepted the invite. So I guess he's been floating around. So he's already accepted the invite. Uh, and if you were really watching, when I first opened this, the Relic browser wasn't recommended, and that was because Theorelica must have recommended the Relic browser personally. And when he joined my space, it sort of added itself to the recommended list, right? And the idea behind this is that as people join uh, into your space, you'll have all these recommended apps that get sorted based on like the people that you invite, right? Yeah, he's floating around. Um, and so it's kind of cool because you just based on like the social graph of your space or the people that you invite, you'll get all these different recommended apps based on the type of people. So maybe there's a lot of like really schizo sort of like uh, you know 4chan user types, and you get a bunch of these apps that are more so tailored to that, right? And all of these are dynamic. So if I go and add another one and recommend another app that I find, then essentially it's broadcast to the different spaces I'm in, and then it resorts sort of the recommendation list from that, which is kind of cool. And I think I'll dive more into exactly how all of that works uh, in another live stream. So I'm probably going to do, you know, every Friday I'm going to try to do the live streams at around 3 p.m. And this today I'm kind of focusing on the spaces concept, but I'll do a deep dive into like all the other pieces of the puzzle over the next couple weeks. So like for the app suite, I can come here and I can just add a quick app. And yeah, there's some styling things we still have to work through. But yeah, so I can add ballot and say, okay, if you join this space, you should probably have ballot. And if you don't have it installed, you can actually just install it from here. You have a little download button and it's grayed out and you just install it and you're done. You can see here I already have the install buttons and they're already installed. But if I were to join a new space and there's like a recommended app I've never seen, I just hit install, it installs, we're good to go. And so there's a way you can quickly get back to your app grid from here, from this screen, is this button up in the top right, where you just hit that and suddenly you're at your app grid again, right? And from here you can do everything you want. You could like uninstall an app and do all those things. Um, and yeah, so the member list is pretty easy to work with. So, I can add anyone in the Orbit network to the group or to the space. Um, and yeah, it's pretty easy. So this is sort of like the higher level concept of like what spaces feels like to use. So now I want to talk about the developer like unlock that you get with spaces. Okay. So let me switch back to maybe my main space, lomder here, and I will go home. Actually, I want to open this app. Yeah. Okay. So Ngram. Ngram is an app that we're working with, uh, or that we're working to sort of facilitate. We're working with this, company called Avalon Labs, and they're sort of like this guinea pig for us. So spaces, the idea with spaces is when you're in a desktop space, every app that is in that space should be filtered for that specific group of people, right? So here, this is like my personal one. So I have all of my workspace documents that I use personally. If I were to open Ngram, say in the Holium space, I would get an entirely different list of documents that are specific to Holium, right? And so we're sort of in this phase right now where we're building these pieces out. And so the Dalton Collective is working on another app called Trove, and you could think of that as like a Dropbox or sort of file browser style app. And for that, the cool thing about that is that, yeah, you can have, and I can't demo that yet because they're still like building it out, but it would be like, maybe I could show a design actually. Let me switch over to the design file. This would be useful to see. Um, yeah, can you see the screen still, guys? Yeah, cool. So this is the design that the Dalton guys, or sorry, the Quartus guys are working on right now. And the goal is for this to be launched at 12.12 alongside all the other apps. Um, and so you can imagine if I'm in my personal space, I've got my own memes. I've got my own memes. Maybe I've got my own like personal photos that are uploaded. But then if I go into the Holium one, maybe the entire folder structure is different. It's like the Holium, memes. We have some memes, a few memes. We got to do some more. But like, yeah, all of our research, all of the PDFs we come across that are talking about like DAOs or whatever we're researching, everyone can just drop it in the same place, right? It's just like a shared computer in that way. And the thing with the space is primitive that we want developers to leverage is this concept where if you're building an app on Urbit and you make it a space enabled app, essentially what you could do is you can anticipate that we are going to sort of pass into the app what space you're in. And the way we're doing it right now is by using it, passing in a query parameter that whatever app is developed could then leverage and filter. We want to build a more sophisticated way to facilitate this, but for now, it's pretty bare bones. But what you can do with it is pretty cool. So this is sort of the idea of like spaces from a developer perspective, is that each of these contexts should be filtering the data you see. And so let's go back over here. So yeah, so I'm opening, Ngram in the Holium space, different set of documents on the left. Permission is kind of like mapped to the permissions in the Holium space. And then we can just start editing the documents together. And obviously you can still like retain some permissions for yourself and say, I don't want to share this with anyone in the space. But like by default, everything is sort of like accessible for the space. And yeah, so this is just the beginning too. So, we've obviously been busy building this entire, OS experience. But there's so much that's going to come after we launch on 12.12 and developers can start playing with things. And we actually have something right now that you can use to start getting, ready for building apps for Realm. And I could switch over to that real quick. So it's just right here. It's a public Git repo that we have called the OS Sandbox, right? So, right now it has things like theming and a guide to sort of like get your app ready for the theming system. And also it sort of talks to the high level concept of spaces. We actually have a set of docs, in another repo right here, which is another public repo. And if you go to the wiki in Realm Docs, we actually have a full detailed guide to like all of our scries for spaces. And it shows you all of the output there. Yeah, so you can it shows you how you get permissions. All the pokes are here. And I think we're going to end up fleshing this out a bit more and sort of give what the updates actually will look like. And we're going to be working on these docs over the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the final, 12.12 release. But yeah, so you can expect to like come to the Realm Docs repo for like more fleshed out documentation as we, do these weekly live streams and start showcasing, what we're up to. And I think what you're going to find is, we have this sort of app dev summer list of apps. So we've got the Ngram stuff, we've got Trove, we've got Lexicon, Minesweeper, and Abacus, which is the calculator. And so the target is for all of those to be 12.12. And beyond that, like once we get this out, our hope is to get developers in as, first. So if you're a developer, you're sort of prioritized on the invite list. And, we're going to send out like, an email questionnaire to sort of figure out who's developers and whatnot. But you should expect that probably at the beginning of December. But once you get in, our goal is to facilitate app development. Because really what's going to be cool is the things that you can build on top of safe spaces, right? And the sort of vision is like every single app you use is filtered for the Halium workspace, right? Every single app I use in Urbit, you know, is filtered for Uqbar if you're in Uqbar. I mean, you can imagine even like the IDEs being that way. So like the Uqbar IDE could be, we could have all of our smart contracts listed, in the Halium space. So internally, we could all work on stuff, and it's sort of just, yeah, a shared computer. Think of it as a shared computer. That's how, like, that's what we want to build here. And obviously, at certain scales, this doesn't really work within there's like 10,000 people or something. And I think that's where, you know, you sort of break down into subspaces. But yeah, this is sort of the high level view. And if anyone wants to ask any questions, I think that's where we'll go from here. Let's see, can we show off multiplayer OS stuff already? Um, no, no, not this week. I could I would say for the multiplayer OS stuff, we're aiming to showcase that right before 12.12. Mainly because it's just, yeah, there's a lot to tune and a lot of finesse that we need to do to really polish the whole experience there. What I can do maybe is just show, the rooms primitive briefly that will sort of hint at this multiplayer stuff. So um, yeah, I can create a room real quick. So we'll call this like, multiplayer teas. Multiplayer teas. So when I turned that on, the sort of mic in rooms like took over the mic here, and sort of like I had this weird feedback thing happen in the mic. So that's interesting. But yeah, do you envision this as a major DAO stack? Yes, I think this is going to be the pretty much the DAO stack. Um, why? I think the reason this is going to become the DAO stack is because our focus is on honing collaboration and making sure that like groups of people can build in this collaborative environment. And I think DAOs need a few things. DAOs need a sense of like home, like they need like a place to gather that's not like 30 different online services. And this is sort of that space. And beyond that, I think the other thing is just the ability to build your own, tooling on top of it. It's not a thing where you're going to have to go off and, deploy Kubernetes clusters to AWS or whatever to like launch a forum app, right? You can write a forum app or you'll have other people write forum apps for you on Urbit, and small teams can do this really easily, right? Like there's only two guys working on Ngram. There's just two guys working on the Ngram app, and it's pretty fleshed out overall, I'd say. I don't want to show some of the stuff way down there, but anyways. Um, but yeah, so like you can do a lot with a small team, and now Ngram is able to be downloaded by anyone, which is crazy. Um, so yeah, I think that's. Let's see, how's the performance of Realm feel? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Anthony, the performance of Realm. So the way we've built Realm is by kind of like rethinking how we do like DM. Like we essentially rewrote like the DM system to be fast. And what I mean by that is that we've sort of written the APIs so that like in on the Hoon side, we're sort of doing all the heavy lifting before it gets converted to JSON, and then we only send like the data needed for the UI in JSON. Like nothing else is sent. Or I think the problem with things like groups and Escape right now is that a lot of JSON is being serialized, and that's what's taking a lot of time. Um, let's see, where can we find Ngram? So Ingram is still in the process of being like developed. So like right now, if you were to use it, you're guaranteed to have like state change and things get probably blown away and break. Uh, but by so we're doing the spaces integration in Ngram right now, as well as it has the capacity to do like multiple editors. So like I can invite you or anyone in the space can edit a document. So all of that stuff is still like I would say, you know, in a few weeks it should be ready in like kind of an alpha form, but it's not ready right now. Sorry. Um, see, hardware running this on. Where is your ship running? Yeah. Okay, Lucas. Yeah, so I'm running this on DigitalOcean by myself. Um, but what we have in the onboarding flow, which I'm not going to show you that today because we're saving that for, we're going to do a whole live stream that's all about the onboarding flow because the onboarding flow is really cool. Because we have a few things in the onboarding flow that are pretty exciting. One of them is sort of like having, access, like you can have these sort of like group codes that pre-join you to certain groups and pre-install apps and stuff like that. Um, and also you can just, yeah, pay with a credit card and get on. But I think that using port for Realm is not going to be a suggested solution. Um, that's what like we just decided not to use that because there's been so many issues with people using it. So instead, if you really want to use Realm to its maximum uh, capacity, you probably should just do a hosted chip. Um, and yeah, let's see what else is there. Oh yeah, is Halium OS an app? Yes. So this is an app that you download, and the app is, we have auto updates and things like that. So you get updates pushed to you, whenever we fix bugs and stuff. So it's an app you download. You can think about it as like it's not a VM. You don't have to like get VMware or anything like that. It's just an app you download. And the sort of thesis here is that we want to be able to terraform the current operating system like landscape without having to do all of these like technical things. So that you don't have to go download VMware Fusion or something like that. Desk or app? What do you mean by that? Like a desktop app? It's a desktop app if that's what you're asking. And then behind the scenes, we have a whole series of agents that power it. And I can maybe just switch over here and show you some of them. Um, yeah, so this is the spaces file here, the spaces agent itself. So we actually have, a series of agents that run on the back end side. So we've got, friends, the rooms primitives, this one utility called slip, spaces and bazaar. Is Halium an Urbit desk? Yes, Halium is an Urbit desk. If you actually look at it, we have three desks, and they're split out because they kind of need to be for various other use cases that we haven't talked about yet. What's what's the correct name for Urbit apps? Apparent. Okay, which is I just refer to them as apps. Like they're just Urbit apps. The technical way you could say it's like it's a desk, but uh, yeah, essentially it's an app. And so like yeah, so there's like this desk, sure, this Urbit desk on the back end side. And then we have sort of this desktop app that you download, and that desktop app communicates with those, the Urbit desks or the agents that are running on your Urbit ship. So really, like if you install the Realm desks, and you open it in landscape, they don't do anything. You'll notice that, like you'll notice if I go back to my home grid here, we don't even have like there's no Realm app in here because it's sort of like a headless thing. Like Realm is just an app that's on the back end, uh, and it's facilitating the communication to this front end here. to play with this today. So right now, the like we're still working through a lot of the details in terms of like just the polished details. So we're probably not going to open the repo up until we feel it's polished enough. So, but with that being said, there's a way you can, start playing with sort of this OS sandbox if you want to start developing apps. And so the OS sandbox, here's an example. We can just look at a pull request that was uh, done for ballot here. Let me actually go to ballot. So there's this pull request here, which showcases kind of what you can do with the OS sandbox. Um, so it's just the window, and you can get your Urban app, and you can like integrate it with the theming system and all of that. So what we'll be doing over the next few weeks is we're going to be adding the Spaces primitive integrations into this, OS Sandbox, and it's here. So under Holium, you can find OS Sandbox, and that's sort of the closest thing we have right now to play with it. But 12.12 is only like a month away, so yeah, just a little patience, and you'll get there. Cool. Let's see. Another question. Yeah, so the Realm app is actually it's an app you download. Instead of downloading Google Chrome, you download Realm, if that makes sense. Um, so it's just a totally different web environment. And yeah, if you wanted to, you could go into the Relic browser, and I could log into DigitalOcean here and like manage something if I wanted to. But yeah. Oh, you want to see what settings to do? Sure, I can open up settings. Check it out. All right, so this is the settings app. So we have like the account stuff, some display system settings and things like that. You have the theme, so I can come in here and do like dark mode. So check this out. This is kind of cool. Boom. So now we're in dark mode. I actually prefer dark mode, but sometimes it's good to do both uh, for the demo. Win Mac and Linux. Yes, it will be Windows, Mac, and Linux. And we'll probably do the alpha in phases where we start with maybe targeting one computer, just so that we can focus on bugs for one, and then we'll open it up for like the next and so on and so forth. Is this CSS themable? Is this like the OG MySpace? Um, no, it's not quite that flexible. What I think we're going to do over time is we have plans to do more robust theming system. And I think the more robust theming system will essentially give most of the dials that you would get in CSS. So yeah, I don't know, like you could just like yeah, copy and paste the CSS like the MySpace days. If you remember that. That was like good days. But yeah, our goal is that like when you switch between spaces, we want one to be sort of retro wave, like hacker or something. We want another one to feel like Cyberpunk 2077. We want another one to feel like retro Macintosh. Like we want this sort of visceral sense that you're traveling into a new look like a new computer. So we want to give like a huge amount of flexibility in the themes. Um, and just for day one, it's just yeah, there's a lot here. And I kind of want to show you more, but I know that we should probably hold off so we have, these things to showcase over the next few weeks. But the wallet is going to be a really cool one to dive into because we've been testing this on the mainnet, sending things back and forth. And it's pretty cool to be able to send crypto from this. Uh, but 56K boards back. Nice. Sweet. I have no clue. But yeah, so I guess that really wraps up this, unless there's any other questions. But thanks for tuning in for this. I hope that like over time we get more developers interested, and we get more people building apps. So if you have an idea for a Realm app that you want, yeah, just reach out to me, lomder-librun, and you know if you're capable and willing to build it, we'll try to find a way to fund it. Thanks. All right, well, stay in touch with the Twitter page that we have because we'll be announcing more stuff over the next few weeks, and also we'll be doing a lot more of these live streams. So next week, I think we're going to dive into the app discovery agent a bit more, um, and then beyond that, we're going to get into onboarding and all of that. So cool, awesome. Thank you, guys. Yeah, that's the goal, Ben. We want all the normies on here. All the normies. No, I'm kidding. We don't want the normies. We want the cool kids. All right. I'm gonna sign off. Adios.